In this video, we're going to do a deep dive on why you need and should use quad-based spheres rather than a standard sphere that contains triangles. And I'm going to show you how to create these quad-based spheres. So let's do a quick deep dive. So these first three are all quad-based spheres, and this fourth one is a triangle-based sphere. Not all of it, but at the very top and at the bottom, it has triangles. So why are quad-based spheres better than spheres that contain triangles at the top and the bottom as a standard sphere does? And this is due to efficiency and flexibility. On the quad-based spheres, you have even topology. The entire shape is made up of quads, four-sided polygons, and they're all arranged uniformly. The topology is easier to work with, easier to model with, and it eliminates the poles that the standard triangle-based sphere gives you at the top and the bottom. And quad-based geometry is subdivision friendly, while triangle-based geometry is not. So if you're going to sculpt or if you're going to subdivide your meshes to create higher polymeshes, start with quad-based geometry. And you should eliminate or avoid triangles. That often creates pinching, often creates artifacts. It's not very good for deformation. And overall, quads work better with subdivision and sculpting. UVing quad-based meshes, especially the quad-based spheres, are going to be a lot easier. The quad layout works better for unwrapping for texturing because you can choose where the seams are and you can control how you want to unwrap this a lot easier than if you had a triangle-based sphere, the ones with the poles at the top and the bottom. The edge flow is a lot better on the quad-based sphere. So if you're creating characters, the edge flow is going to be a lot more favorable to human or animal anatomy. And a lot of times it's recommended that you start with a quad-based sphere for head or body modeling, because the edge flow is going to be a lot better to work with than starting from a regular standard sphere that has triangles. And then optimization. Quad spheres work better with decimation or retopology to create lower polymeshes, and it allows you to balance the detail and performance without losing the shape, which can be a little bit more challenging when you have triangles. Now let me show you how to create quad-based spheres in Maya from a cube. And then as a bonus, towards the end of the video, I'm going to show you how to use the quad-based spheres and use them to create capsule shapes, which are perfect for a lot of sci-fi based geometry, architecture, and props. First, let me show you two ways in which you should not create a sphere and then use it. So first way, let me create a sphere. This is just a polygonal sphere and just set the size of it so it's bigger. Now this method right here has a couple of problems with it, and mainly it's due to triangles and poles at the top and the bottom. So all the benefits of a quad-based sphere were covered, this sphere does not have. So avoid using the standard sphere as your starting point. Even though this is not the worst method, it's not as efficient and flexible as if you have a quad-based sphere. The other wrong way I see other people create spheres, which are quad-based sphere, but they don't create a very clean or a perfectly round quad-based sphere, which is take a cube and then subdivide it. So let me move this up to the side, and I'm going to create a cube and set the size to match a sphere, just so it's all consistent. So a common way is you create a cube and then you smooth it out, giving it a few divisions by going to mesh, smooth, so you essentially subdivide it. And I'm going to turn the subdivision to 2. And actually we can go higher, so you can see that it is a quad-based sphere. So let's go higher, let's go to 3, or maybe even 5. So it does create a quad-based sphere, however, it's not a perfectly rounded shape. Let me get rid of the wireframe, and if I just place it next to our regular sphere, you can see that it's not a perfectly rounded shape, even though it is a quad-based sphere. Now let me show you two options which are perfect for creating a quad-based sphere, and both of them are great options. Quad sphere option number 1, create a cube, and I have a cube polygon on my tool shelf, so I'll just create that instead of going to the drop down menu, and I'm going to set the size so it is bigger in the viewport. Then for subdivisions with height and depth, give a certain amount. You need more subdivisions for this cube. So in my case, let's go ahead up to 25. You can play around with the amount that you would want, but this is the amount of quads that you're going to have in your sphere. Let's go a little lower. Let's go 20, so it's not as dense. Then switch to animation menu set, because we need to create a deformer, and it's going to be found under deform and sculpt, and just choose sculpt deformer with the cube selected. The options for this are all at default. And create a sculpt deformer. Now the deformer has been created and it's actually inside the cube. It's very small. So if I press 4 for wireframe, it's actually sitting right there in the center. Let me hit 5 to go to shaded mode, and with the deformer selected, hit R for scale tool and just make it larger, scale it up until it goes outside the boundaries of your cube. Just needs to be larger than the size of your cube. And you can see I have a quad sphere. The one last thing you need to do before you finalize it is to delete history. So you can select the cube, go to edit, delete by type, and delete history. And once you do, you now have a quad base sphere that you can use. Now this may be too many divisions, so in that case you would use a cube with less subdivisions in it, maybe bring it down to 10. But this will give you a perfect quad base sphere. The one thing you may experience are hard edges on certain parts of the geometry. So if I zoom in, you can kind of see it right there. There are seams, and those have to do with hard and soft edges. So if I select my sphere now, hold Shift, right click, hold, go to Soften Hardened Edges, and choose Toggle Soft Edge Display. You can see there is a solid edge right here, and that's what's creating that seam. The dashed lines are your soft edges. So to fix that and to remove that visible seam on your sphere, on your quad sphere, just simply select the entire sphere or those hard edges. In this case, I'm going to set the entire sphere all to soft edges by holding Shift, right click, hold, Soften Hardened Edges, and choose Soften Edges for everything. And that fixed it. So now you have a quad base sphere that you can use for anything you want. Quad sphere option number 2 is to create a cube, and I'm going to set the same size as we did before for width, height, and depth, and leave the subdivisions at 1. Select the cube and bevel it at the object level, Control B. Then turn up the fraction all the way to 1 and increase the amount of segments, however many segments you would want. Let's go up to 10. And you have a quad base sphere. There's going to be a problem with it. You have double edges sitting in the center of this mesh, because when you increase the fraction, let me zoom in a little closer, these edges right here, right in the center, they are overlapping when you push it all the way to 1. So you can see when you begin to push all the way to 1, those two edges, they don't merge, but they are now sitting on top of each other. But this gives you a quad base sphere that's a perfect sphere. All we need to do now is just delete those extra edges. So I'm going to select the sphere, go to Edge Component Mode, double click on the center. This will select an entire edge ring, and press Control Delete. Make sure you press Control Delete. That's very important. And also do the same thing for the one going horizontal. So one across vertical in the center and one going horizontal in the center. And press Control Delete. And also do not forget about the edge that's on the side right here. Make sure to delete that one also. Once you do, let me hit Alt 5 to remove the wireframe. You have a quad base sphere. So that is your second option of creating a quad base sphere that you can use for anything you want. The one thing you may want to do is make sure that everything in the sphere, all the edges are soft edges, just so it's perfectly rounded. So let's check this really quick. Select the sphere, hold Shift, right click, hold, Soften Hardened Edge, Toggle Soft Edge Display, and take a look. And it is all dashed lines. There are no solid lines, which tells me that all the edges are soft edges. And that's your second method of creating a quad base sphere. So you have two methods. You can use one or the other. Whichever one you want to use is up to you, but both will produce good results. And just control the amount of segments for the second method, or the amount of subdivisions that you insert into the initial cube, so it's not so dense. Now let me give you some ideas on how to create capsule shapes. And the capsule shape is perfect for when you have a quad base sphere that you want to take a step further to and create interesting shapes such as capsules. Create a quad sphere using one of the two methods, then select the bottom portion of the shape, all the faces. So let me switch over to front view, switch over to faces, select just the bottom portion at a halfway point right there, all the faces. Then hold down Shift, left click, hold, and drag it down. Then let me just set all the edges to soft edge, so it's nice and rounded. Get rid of the wireframe I shaded, Alt 5, and now I have a capsule. Another step forward, what I could do is select the faces in the center, in the front of this capsule. So let me go to side view. So I'm going to select all the faces in the front, just half of the shape, and then delete it. So here's what we have. Basically, I just deleted the front portion of the faces for this capsule. Then I can use this as some kind of a shape, a half-rounded capsule shape. Or I can take these faces, the entire shape, go to Mesh Display, and reverse the faces. So the faces on the outside will become visible on the inside. And that way I can have an inverted shape for this capsule shape, that I can create an indented capsule shape for detail on a wall or on some prop. So let me go to mesh display, reverse. You can see that I have all the faces here visible to me on the inside, but not on the outside. And then maybe let's say I can select all the edges on the outside, the border edges, and let's extrude them. I'm gonna hit Ctrl E on those selected edges and give some thickness. And now I have an interesting shape that I can do something with. Again, this could be used for detail on some architecture, on some geometry, or for a prop. So from a quad-based sphere, you have a lot of options you can use, a lot of benefit. They're a lot more flexible, they're a lot more efficient, and you can use to create capsule shapes, which are perfect for sci-fi type of environments and sci-fi type of props. And if you want to master Maya modeling, then you must check out Maya Foundation home study course I created. And this will teach you all the modeling skills you need to know for environments using Maya.